This is one of the things that sets these adapters apart from other adapters. You cannot do this with most adapters on the market. And we're going to set the TX power to a fixed amount. And we see that the TX power of the adapter has been changed to 10 dBm. I have here two of the most popular Alfa external Wi-Fi adapters that are on the market. Each one is running a different chipset. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can properly install the drivers to get both of these Wi-Fi adapters working correctly. We're going to do it all on a Linux system, Ubuntu Linux to be specific. And in general, I'm just going to show you a lot of different things that you can do with these to get these external adapters to do some very powerful things. Make sure you watch the whole video. It's going to be very informative. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I think a good way to start off this video would be to first go over to the website for these Alfa adapters, and that is over at alfa.com.tw. Now over here on the home page, if we scroll a little bit down the page, we come to an area that actually is referred to as Kali Linux compatible Wi-Fi USB adapters. And one of the first ones that we see is the AWUS036ACH Alfa Wi-Fi adapter, and that is the one that has two antennas, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. That is this one right here. If I hit this right arrow button, it'll take me through some other options. We can see additional adapters, but perhaps the more common way of looking for these adapters is going to be from Amazon. So if you were to go over to Amazon, I'm not logged in, I'm just using the version of Amazon in the web browser. If I were to type in Alfa Wi-Fi adapter monitor mode, this is a very popular search that is used on Amazon. The very first adapter that pops up is going to be that same adapter, the 036ACH, which is, once again, this adapter right here. The current price of this adapter off of Amazon is $59.99, and all of these other various adapters that are made by Alfa are all very good adapters that are capable of doing the same things that we're going to be demonstrating in this video, things like monitor mode. If we scroll a couple entries down, we come to this adapter right here, which is referred to as the Alfa AWUS036ACHM. Currently retails for $44.99, and that is this adapter right here. Now, though both of these adapters, they have similar capabilities and they are made by the same manufacturer, each one uses a different chipset, and that's very important to understand. So if we take a look at the dual band Alfa Wi-Fi adapter, we can see from the product description that it is using the Realtek RTL8812AU chipset. Now if we look at the product description for the AWUS036ACHM, this uses a different chipset. So it says here that this is using the MT761OU chipset, and it has just one detachable high gain antenna. Now this device does support dual band operation, 2.4 or 5 gigahertz, but unlike the other Alfa Wi-Fi adapter, it is not going to be able to do both simultaneously. Okay, so we're over here on my Ubuntu Linux desktop. We have a terminal emulator open. If I cat out the contents of the file located in etc/os release, we will see that I am currently using Ubuntu 22.04.5 LTS. This is codename Jammy. Everything that I am going to show you should be applicable for any Debian-based distribution, such as Kali Linux. Okay, so the first adapter that we are going to plug in is going to be the Alfa adapter that has just one antenna. This is the one that is using the MT76 chipset. Before I plug it in, I'm going to run the dmessage command. I'm going to need sudo privileges for this. If I do a what is on dmessage, we get back that it is used to print or control the kernel ring buffer. So I'm going to start up dmessage with sudo privileges, and I'm going to do a -w, because the -w will allow me to print and see any new messages on the screen. So I will go ahead and hit enter, and now I will plug in the Alfa adapter. As soon as I plug it in, you see we have output printed to the screen. Okay, so we're going to plug the first of the two Alfa USB Wi-Fi adapters into my computer. This is the one that's running the MT76X0U chipset. As soon as I plug the adapter into my machine, we get output on the screen. And there are some very important things that we can get from this output from dmessage. We see that we have a new high-speed USB device that has been recognized by the machine. We have vendor ID and product identification strings. It has identified the device as a Wi-Fi product, and more importantly, the manufacturer is MediaTek, and we are referring to the manufacturer of the chipset. dmessage has also identified that a selected rate control algorithm is being used that is called minstrel_HT, and my Linux Ubuntu system has renamed the interface from WLAN 0 to this longer name right here. Okay, so let's Control-C that. Now another very popular Linux command that we can use to get more information about this adapter is going to be the ls_usb command. If I do a what is on ls_usb, we get back that it is used to list USB devices. There's also a man page. It says that ls_usb is a utility for displaying information about USB buses in the system and the devices connected to them. It uses UDEV's hardware database to associate a full human readable name to the vendor ID and the product ID. So you begin to see how important the vendor ID and the product ID strings actually are. Okay, so let's Q for quit. ls_usb has a help menu that we can get access to by running --help. A couple of these that we will be using: -v for verbosity, also -s to show only devices with a specified device or bus number. So if I just run ls_usb by itself, it's going to list everything that's connected to the USB ports of my machine, and I don't want to show you everything. I just want to show you the adapter. If you remember from running dmessage, we saw that the manufacturer came back as MediaTek for the chipset. So I can assume that MediaTek will come back from the output of ls_usb, since it is pulling that information from the same place. So I can run ls_usb, and I will pipe the output into grep. I'll do a -i for case insensitivity, so it doesn't matter if I use upper or lowercase letter. And I'm going to simply grep for MediaTek. And we do get back a hit. So the Alfa adapter is connected to bus 1 and device 033. Here we have the same product and vendor identification strings that we saw from dmessage. Here is the manufacturer of the chipset, MediaTek, and here is the product, Wi-Fi. Now we can actually get even more information from LS USB, and that is by using the -V for verbosity option. So I can run LS USB, do a -v, and I will do a -s to specify this specific device. And I do that by first giving the bus number, which is 1, a colon, and then the device number, which is 33. And I am pulling that information from right here. And I will hit enter. So here we have the vendor ID, the product ID, the manufacturer, product, serial. We have different classes, descriptor classes, and we see here at the bottom that this is also supporting something referred to as link power management, or LPM for short. Now, one of the things I always like to do is to get a word count or a line count of how many lines of output I was able to get from certain commands. So I'll rerun that command and pipe that into word count with a -L, and that will tell me that we were able to get 131 lines of output from running that command. Now sometimes we can run the same command with sudo privileges and it will give us even more information. In this example, it doesn't look like it's going to do that, but we'll give it a try anyway, and I'll rerun that command with sudo privileges. And once again pipe the output into word count with a -L, and we get the same number of lines, 131. But we'll look at the next adapter and see if we can get more lines from LS USB on that adapter. Okay, so with dmessage still running and that first adapter still plugged in, we're going to go ahead and plug in the second Alfa adapter. Now this is the adapter that you see here with 2 antennas. So as soon as I plugged it in, we see we have output on the screen. Once again, a new high-speed USB device has been recognized by our system. We have vendor and product strings, and we see that for the manufacturer we have something different. This one says Realtek. So when it says manufacturer, it is referring to the chipset. Both of these are made by Alfa. However, they have different chipsets inside of them. This is very important to understand. So let me go ahead and Control C on that. And since we now know that the manufacturer coming back for this is Realtek, I'm going to run LS USB again, and I'm going to grep for Realtek. And what perhaps is most important to get from running the LS USB command is going to be this little part right here. That is where it says RTL8812AU, because this is referring to the chipset on the device. Just like with the last device, we'll go ahead and run LS USB and do a -V for verbosity, a -S to specify a specific device. And for this example, this device is connected to bus 1 as device 022. So I'll do 1:22 and hit enter. And that's the output that we're able to get from the device. If I rerun that command and pipe that into word count, we see that we have 87 lines of output. We also see that it says it couldn't get some information back. So if I rerun that command with sudo privileges and we pipe that into word count, we see that we have 99 lines now. So we were able to squeeze out 12 more lines of output by running this with sudo. And to actually see the output, I'll rerun that. And this might seem like overkill, but you can learn some very important things about your adapter from doing this. One of the things that we have now is the serial number. But what's really interesting, and you may have not learned this unless you were running this specifically with sudo privileges, is the very last line of output, the very last line. We see that remote wake up has been enabled on this device. How that was enabled and why it is enabled is something that perhaps we'll take a look at later in the video or in a separate video. But the point is we would never have known that that even existed had we not ran that command with sudo privileges. Okay, so we have both adapters plugged in, and we've taken a quick look at the output that we get from dmessage as well as the ls-usb command. Now, the reason that most people are buying these adapters and using them with Linux stem from the fact that they have capabilities that extend beyond what the normal Wi-Fi adapter has. Okay, so one of the reasons why you might be using an Alfa Wi-Fi adapter as opposed to a different Wi-Fi adapter like this Netgear adapter here is because the Alfa Wi-Fi adapters have capabilities that extend beyond what most adapters have. Capabilities like being able to put the adapter into what is called monitor mode. You're going to need a set of utilities that is commonly referred to as AirCrack or the AirCrack NG suite of tools. Now, if you're using Kali Linux, this is most likely pre-installed, but we are using Ubuntu. It does not come pre-installed, but if I do an apt search for AirCrack, we will get back that there is a suite of tools called AirCrack NG. I do have this suite of tools already installed, and it is used for, amongst other things, wireless WEP and WPA cracking. So if you do not have AirCrack installed, it's very simple to get it installed. You run the command sudo apt install AirCrack-NG. As I said, I already have it installed. I'm going to show you the GitHub page for AirCrack. So we're over here at the main GitHub page for AirCrack NG. Alright, so if you go to the main GitHub page for AirCrack, that's at github.com/aircrack-ng, you will see that we have several repositories. And I want to make a distinction between AirCrack NG as the suite of tools that we are using and a specific repo that we need in order to install the driver to work with one of these Alfa adapters. So if I click on the repository for AirCrack NG, we are taken to this page. It says that this is a suite of auditing tools used for Wi-Fi security. If I go back to that main repository, you see that we have some other repositories over here on the right-hand side. And these are the repositories that refer to specific chipsets. So we have a repository here for RTL8812AU, and then we have a repository for RTL8814AU. So we have one for 1.2 and one for 1.4. If you remember when we ran ls-usb and we searched for the adapter with the Realtek chipset, we got back this little bit of information right here, RTL8812AU. So that lets us know that this is using that particular chipset. It also lets us know that when it comes to installing the driver, that is going to be the repo that we're going to have to take a look at. So I'm going to click on the repository for RTL8812AU, and that brings us to this page. So this is where we can find the correct driver to be able to use this device with monitor mode and frame injection. You see here at the top, it says that this branch is 1,297 commits ahead of and 48 commits behind this other branch. Don't pay that any attention. Don't worry about that. That does not matter, because what we need is a specific branch of this repository. And we're going to come back to this momentarily. All right, so having the aircrack-ng suite of tools installed, there is a command that we can run. That command is going to be airmon-ng. If I run airmon-ng by itself with no options, using sudo privileges, it will give me back information on the adapters that it recognizes. One of the adapters that it is recognizing is this one right here that has the that has the MT76 chipset in it, the MediaTek chipset. However, interestingly enough, it's not even identifying my other Alfa Wi-Fi adapter. And the reason that it's not identifying it is because we do not have the correct drivers installed. So though we were able to run the dmessage command, and we were able to run lsusb, and we were able to get information back on this adapter, that our system is recognizing it, until we get those drivers installed, we are not going to be able to use this adapter with monitor mode or with packet injection. If I run iwconfig, we do see that we have the name of the interface for one of our Alfa adapters, but not for both. Okay, so what we're going to do now is perhaps the most important part of this video. This is the part where people get the most confused. So we have identified the correct repository for the chipset that we need the drivers for. We're over at that repository. If I scroll further down the page, it tells us that we are going to need a DKMS, and it gives us the specific branch that we need to clone the repository of. So I'm just going to copy this from underneath the download section. So we are doing a git clone on a very specific branch that is version 5.6.4.2. So I'm going to go back to my terminal emulator and paste in that command. Now we need to install DKMS if you do not have it installed already. So what is DKMS? This is a system which automatically will recompile and install a kernel module when a new kernel gets installed or updated. So what this basically does for you is by using DKMS, when that time comes for you to update your system and it recompiles the kernel, you won't have to go through this process again, because it will do all of this for you. If you do not do the install using DKMS, then every single time that you upgrade your system, you're going to have to do this again. So we see that the repository has been cloned. Let's go ahead and make sure that we have DKMS installed. I'll run the command sudo apt install DKMS. If I do a what is on DKMS, we get back that it is used for dynamic kernel module support. If I do an apt info on DKMS, we see that it is a framework that is designed to allow individual kernel modules to be upgraded without changing the whole kernel. It is also very easy to rebuild modules as you upgrade kernels. So we have DKMS installed. We did the git clone of that specific branch. Next step is going to be to run the command sudo make DKMS _ install. First, make sure that you cd into the directory that we did the git clone on, and once inside of the directory, you can run that command sudo make DKMS _ install. Okay, so the install has completed. We did not receive any errors, which is a great thing. You can see on the very last line that it ends in installed. Perfect. You might be asking the question, where were the kernel modules or the drivers actually installed? Well, we can cd into user/source. And you're going to see that we have this directory that has been created. The directory actually begins with 8812, which obviously is a reference to the chipset. And this is what has just been installed to the system after running those commands. And that's it. So we have completed the installation of the driver. If for some reason we want to remove that driver, then we could run this command right here. We'll take a look at the rest of this page in a little bit when we get to actually using the adapter. But now that we have completed the installation of the driver, we should be able to rerun that airmon-ng command, and airmon-ng should now be able to recognize the chipset. So let's go ahead and run the command sudo airmon-ng, and we still do not get anything back. So there's one more thing that we need to do, and that is to simply unplug the adapter and plug the adapter back in. So since I'm going to be unplugging it, I'll go ahead and start up dmessage again just to take a look at the output. Okay, so I plugged the adapter back in. You can actually see in the output of dmessage is that it has now registered the interface with that new driver that we just installed. So now let's go ahead and run that command again, sudo airmon-ng, and this time we have an additional line of output. So airmon-ng has now been able to recognize the chipsets of both of our adapters, and it is this second line in the output that corresponds to that driver that we just installed for that Alfa adapter. Okay, so with the installation of the driver now complete, I'm going to unplug that specific adapter, and I'm going to put that to the side, and we're going to focus just on our single dipole Alfa adapter. Alright, so I'm going to show you another common issue that you may run into when using these devices. This adapter in particular comes with its own USB cable, USB Type-C on the end that connects to the adapter, and it is a high quality cable. It's the cable you should be using. Unfortunately, I do not have that cable. I don't know what happened to it. So I'm using a replacement cable or a substitute cable. Sometimes the issue may simply be the type of cable you're using or the particular port that you're plugging it in onto your machine, and you may think that it is the device or the driver. And I'm going to show you an example of that. So I'm going to plug the Alfa adapter into one of the ports on my machine. I'm using a long USB cable. It's a cable that I do know works for transferring data over USB. Normally works fine. But watch what happens when I plug the adapter into my machine using this cable. If we look at the output of the screen running dmessage, we see that we're getting a lot of errors. We have device descriptor errors. It's saying the device is not able to respond to the setup address. It attempted a power cycle, and ultimately it's not able to enable the device, and it's actually telling us or asking us maybe the USB cable is bad. Ultimately, it is unable to enumerate the USB device. So it'd be easy for you to make the assumption that it has something to do with the device, or maybe it's an issue with the driver. But if I unplug the adapter and plug it back into my machine using a different cable, let's look at the output from dmessage. Alright, so this time when I plug it into my machine, the output that we're getting from dmessage has no errors in it. We see we have a new high-speed USB device that has been registered on the system. We have the vendor and product identification strings. It has identified the product. It has identified the chip manufacturer as Realtek. And it has properly identified the correct driver that is in use for the Alfa adapter. Also, it has renamed the device from WLAN 0 to this longer naming convention for the interface. But the important thing is that we have no errors, correct drivers being recognized. So what you can take from this is that you should always try different cabling and try different ports on your machine before you just assume that it's a problem with the device or the driver. Okay, so let's focus for a little bit just on one of the two Alfa adapters. The things that I'm about to show you in this particular section of the video can be applied to any of these adapters. In fact, they can be applied to other adapters outside of these Alfa adapters. What we want to do is we want to take a look at how we might change the MAC address of the adapter. So if I run ifconfig, and yes, ifconfig technically is considered to be a deprecated command, but most people still use it. If I run ifconfig, this adapter is not showing up in the output. If I run iwconfig, it is. This is the name that my system has given this particular adapter. Currently, it is in managed mode, but the reason it's not showing up in ifconfig is because I have brought the adapter, or the interface as it is called, down. First thing that I typically do is bring the interface down, and then I change the MAC address. So now that we have the name of the interface, we're going to use a tool called MAC Changer. If I do a what is on MAC Changer, we get back that it's a MAC Changer. I can pull up the help menu by doing Mac Changer -- help. It has a very small and concise help menu. And there is also a man page I can open up by doing man on Mac Changer. This is a GNU Linux utility used for viewing and manipulating the MAC address for network interfaces. So let me do Q for quit. And very simple. If we want to get the current MAC address of the adapter, we can do a -s to print the MAC address. So if I run Mac Changer with -s and give it the name of the interface, it gives me the current MAC address, which, as one would expect, is the MAC address associated with an Alfa device. If you ever wondered where it is actually getting this from, how does it know that it's an Alfa device? Well, we can actually run Mac Changer with a -l, and it will print all of the known vendors because it has all of these identifiers from the MAC address stored in a file. So I'll run Mac Changer with a -l, and what we have here are all of the vendors that are associated with this latter portion of the MAC address. So if we scroll through this list, we're going to have pretty much anything and everything that you can think of, including the biggest names like Apple, Nokia, Trump, Cisco, LG, and Samsung. So what I would do is I'll run Mac Changer with a -l, and I'm going to pipe that into grep, and we're going to grep for Alfa. And here are all of the lines of output that have to do with Alfa, and it is this second one that has actually been given the identifier of 12082 by MacChanger. So you can see that this portion right here, if I were to run MacChanger again and show us the current MAC address of the interface, you can see that it is the first half of that MAC address that is associated with Alfa, and then the second half is something that is specific to each device itself. So if you want to change the MAC address to something and you want it to register as a different manufacturer, such as Apple, for example, what you're going to be most interested in doing is in changing the first half of that MAC address. But if we just want to randomize the MAC address, I'll need sudo privileges for this, but I'll run the command sudo MacChanger with a dash lowercase r, and once again give it the name of the interface. And now it has changed the MAC address of our Alfa adapter from what was the current and permanent MAC address to this new MAC address that is actually unknown. It's completely randomized. But if we want to do something that's a little more cool, we can change the MAC address of our Alfa adapter to that of something that is going to be known by people around us. So let's go ahead and print that list one more time. And let's look for something interesting. Okay, so here we have the identifier for an LG electronic device. So let's go ahead and copy that portion of the MAC address. If I run MacChanger one more time with the -- help flag, okay, so we can see from the help menu that if we want to set it to a specific MAC address, we're going to have to use -- mac equals followed by that MAC address. So I'll go ahead and run the command sudo MacChanger with -- mac equals, and I'll paste in that first half of the MAC address that I got from the list of vendors, and then for the latter half, that part that is specific to the device, we'll just make something up, and I'll just do 001122. What am I doing wrong? Oh, I forgot to put the name of the interface of the adapter in that command. So let me rerun that command and give it the name of the device. And to get that name, I need to open up a new terminal and type iwconfig one more time and copy the name of that interface. Come back over here, paste that in, and there we go. So we changed the MAC address from what was a randomized MAC address to that of a device that is now going to appear to others around us as an LG Electronics device. This could be useful for many reasons. If nothing else, it's just cool, but this could be useful because anybody around you that is maybe looking at what you're doing a little too closely or maybe monitoring you, it'd be a nice little way of throwing them off the trail a little bit and making them think that this is just some random refrigerator that's transmitting all of this data. Now I'm not going to leave it as LG Electronics, so I'm going to one more time just run MacChanger, and I'm going to randomize this device one last time. And there we go. Okay, so now that we have randomized the MAC address of the adapter, now we can go ahead and connect to the network. I'm not going to show you the details of the network that I'm connecting to, but I like to do the connection from the command line, and in order to do that, I like to use the nmcli utility. So if I do a what is on nm CLI, we get back that it is a command line tool for controlling Network Manager. This is an Ubuntu distribution. It does use Network Manager, but we can control Network Manager from the command line using nmcli. All right, so let's go ahead and connect to the internet using our Alfa adapter. If this is your first time connecting to the internet with the adapter, then you're obviously going to have to determine what network that you are connecting to and enter in the password, etc. and so forth. To set up the initial connection, I prefer to use nmtui, and that is a text user interface for controlling Network Manager. So if I run nmtui, it will pull up this little prompt right here, and I can go ahead and activate the connection. Once I have done that, I like to connect to the network from the command line, so whenever I have to reconnect, I prefer to use nmcli. So if I run nmcli with -- help, we'll get the help options here. And there's a lot of things that we can do with this command line utility, but if you look down here at the bottom, you'll get help with the general syntax of how nmcli works. You have these various objects. I can actually just type in nmcli and then do 2 tabs, and it will autocomplete, and it will show me all of those various objects. So by running nmcli general, it'll give me back general information about the state of the device and the connectivity. So we see that as far as the hardware goes, it is enabled, but the Wi-Fi is disabled. So what I can do is run the command nmcli radio, and I'm going to be looking for Wi-Fi, and I'm going to do on. Running that command will automatically connect the adapter to the network that the settings are saved for. Now if I try to ping a DNS server like 1.1.1.1, we will see that the ICMP requests are being sent and received with 0% packet loss. And I should also have an IP address, and since I am using a VPN, as you always should be using a VPN, especially for networks that you don't trust, I should have an IP address for that instance. So now if I run ifconfig, not only does my interface show up in the output, but I have an IP address for it, and as well as an IP address for the tunnel that has been created to my VPN, which is Mulvad VPN. Okay, so that's how you would connect to the network using your adapter. Some of this information obviously is not exclusive to Alfa adapters. This is stuff that you can use with any adapter that you're using with Linux from the command line. Now if I want to disconnect, I can basically do the same command with a slight modification at the end, and I'll run nmcli radio Wi-Fi, and I'm going to do off. Now if I run ifconfig, we see that the interface no longer shows up in the output. So we didn't just disconnect from the network, we basically brought the interface down. If I run iwconfig, we are still able to see the interface. All right, let me open up my web browser again, and let's go back over to the GitHub page for this particular repo that we downloaded the drivers for, RTL8812AU. If you take a look at this GitHub page, there's some pretty good information that you can get from it beyond just the installation of the driver. It shows you the proper way to bring the interface down, to put it into monitor mode and bring the interface back up, as well as setting the TX power, which we would do a little later in the video. Now most people, they still use ifconfig and you can use ifconfig. So I'm going to show you both ways. So we are going to continue to look just at one of these two adapters because this applies to both adapters. So if I run iwconfig, we get the name of my adapter, not yours. Yours will surely have a different name, but this is the name of the interface that I am using. Now if I want to bring the interface down using ifconfig, I run the command sudo ifconfig followed by the name of the interface and then down. If I want to bring the interface back up, I run the command sudo ifconfig followed by the name of the interface and I use up, and that will bring the interface back up. Now we get this error of sorts that says the operation is not possible due to RF kill. There are a couple different ways to get around this if you come across this error, and you are likely to come across this error. Two ways that you can solve this issue. One is by using the command that I just ran a little bit ago, which is nmcli radio Wi-Fi on. And what that is doing is that's bringing the Wi-Fi radio back up because it is a radio. Now if I run sudo ifconfig followed by the name of the interface and up, it brings it up. So let's go ahead and repeat this. I am going to once again bring the interface down, and I am going to use nmcli, and I'm going to turn the radio off for the Wi-Fi. Now I'm going to try to bring that interface back up, and once again I get that same error. So now I'm going to give you a second way that you can get around this if you encounter this error. The second way is by using RF kill. So if I do a what is on RF kill, it is a tool for enabling and disabling wireless devices. If I run RF kill and then do 2 tabs, we get back a couple of different things. I'm just going to do -- help to pull up the help menu, and we have various commands that we can use. So we can use the list command. So let me go ahead and run RF kill and then list, and that will list out all of the devices that we have here, and you can see that this third one right here, which is our physical device that we are using to connect to the network, it has a block on it. It's soft blocked. So all we got to do is run RF kill and unblock all, or we can unblock just that physical device. Maybe I don't want to unblock everything because I have Bluetooth blocked. Maybe I want to keep Bluetooth blocked because I'm not using it, so I only want to unblock just this physical device. In that example, I'm going to do 11 instead of all. So I will actually do RF kill unblock 11, and I'm probably going to need sudo privileges for that. Now if I do RF kill lists, we see that the soft block has been removed. So now I should be able to run sudo ifconfig followed by the name of that interface and bring the interface up. And I am. So there are 2 different ways that you can get around any error that you may receive that says that the operation is not possible due to RF kill. Okay, so there are 2 different ways that we can bring our Alfa adapter down, or bring the interface down as it is called. Let me once again get the name of one of my interfaces, and I'll do that by running iwconfig. We're only going to use one interface for now, as this applies to both of them. So I'll copy the name of my interface, and The easiest method, this is the one that people are probably more familiar with, is by using ifconfig. Technically, ifconfig is deprecated, but a lot of people still use it, myself included. So if we want to bring the interface down using ifconfig, I'll run the command sudo ifconfig followed by the name of the interface and down. If I want to bring the interface back up, I will repeat that command and modify just the last portion of it, and I will use up. Okay, that is the first way. Now here is the second way to bring your interface down as well as to bring the interface back up, and this is the way that is recommended, especially if you are using Alfa adapters and you are using these adapters in various modes such as monitor mode. So to bring the interface down, I'm going to run the command sudo IP link set followed by the name of the interface and then down. Now if I run ifconfig, you will not see the interface anywhere in the output. If I run iwconfig, you will still see the name of the interface. So let's go ahead and bring the interface up. If I want to bring it up, I'll run the command sudo IP link set followed by the name of the interface and up. Now if I run ifconfig, we do see the name of the interface. So we have brought the interface up, but we do not have an IP address. That is because while the interface has been brought up, we have not made a connection to the internet. So it is important to understand that distinction. So one more time, if I want to bring the interface down, sudo IP link set name of the interface down. If I run ifconfig, the name of the interface is not anywhere in the output. Now I'll bring it back up by running sudo IP link set name of the interface up. And if I run ifconfig, we now see the name of the interface. This is also important to understand because when you are changing the MAC address of your adapter, the appropriate way to do this is to bring the interface down, then change the MAC address, and then bring the interface back up. But what we're going to do now is we are going to put the adapter into monitor mode. Before we put the device into monitor mode, we want to perform a check using airmon-ng to make sure that there are no processes that could interfere with the adapter. Okay, so I'll run airmon-ng with sudo privileges, and I'm just going to do a -- help. And very simple, very concise. So we have three main options. We have start, stop, and check. So the first thing that we want to do before we put the Alfa adapter into monitor mode is we want to perform a check. So I'm going to run the command sudo airmon-ng and check. If I'm just checking, I don't need to provide it with the name of the interface. It has found 4 processes that could cause trouble, and it's suggesting to kill those processes using airmon-ng check kill before putting the card into monitor mode. Reason why is because they will interfere by changing channels and sometimes putting the interface back into manage mode. We have those 4 processes with the process ID number on the left hand side and the name of the process on the right hand side. One of those processes is in fact Network Manager. That's why after you put your adapter into monitor mode, you need to restart Network Manager if you want to try to connect to the internet after you were running a scan, because you killed the Network Manager process that was running. So let's go ahead and run sudo airmon-ng check kill. Now you can see that it actually only killed one of those 4 processes. So I'm just going to keep rerunning this until it kills all of them. Run the check kill command again. And again. And again. And again. And again. And finally, after upwards of 5 or 6 times, it finally killed all the processes. So now if I do sudo airmon ng check, we get nothing back. So now that all the processes that could interfere have been killed, we can now put the adapter into monitor mode. Once again, we need to know the name of the interface. For this example, this is the name. And to put the adapter into monitor mode, we have a couple different options. First, we will do the way that is probably most known and most used, and then we will do the lesser known, slightly harder way that is the recommended way. So the first way is by using the same tool we just used, airmon ng. So I run the command sudo airmon ng, followed by start and the name of the interface. Now you can see we get some output back here. It's telling us that the new name that it tried to give the interface is too long, so it renamed it to the old style. So it tried to just add this mon onto the end of the previous name of the interface, but because it was too long, it had to go with a different naming convention. And now if we run iw config, this is the new name of the interface, WLAN 0mon, which we also know by looking at the rest of that output. It says that monitor mode was enabled on this interface. Okay, so now the adapter is in monitor mode. So now let's take it back out of monitor mode. To do that, I'm going to run the command sudo airmon ng stop, followed by the name of the interface. Monitor mode has been disabled. Now if I run iw config, we get back what is now the new name of the interface, no longer WLAN 0mon. So now here's the second way, and the way that is considered to be the recommended way. To put the adapter into monitor mode, we're going to run the command sudo iw dev followed by the name of the interface, set type monitor. What is interesting to note about this second method, the more preferred method, is that the interface name was never changed. So if I run iw config, we see that the name of the interface has remained the same name. Very important distinction. And we do see that it is in fact in monitor mode. And to take the adapter out of monitor mode and put it back into managed mode, we will run the command sudo iw dev followed by the name of the interface, set type managed. Now if I run iw config, we see that the adapter is in managed mode. Alright, let's go ahead and do a very basic scan with our Alfa adapter. I'm going to put it into monitor mode. I'm going to do this using the easier of the two methods. So I'll run the command sudo airmon ng start followed by the name of the interface. To get that, I will open up another terminal and run iw config. there we go. Now hit enter. Now I like the harder way of doing this because it keeps the name the same. And ultimately that is just less confusing for me, that the name remains the same no matter how many times I take it in and out of monitor mode. But for sake of simplicity in typing the command out, I went with this way, and it does change the name of it. So now the name is going to be WLAN0Mon. So now that the adapter is in monitor mode, let's go ahead and do a scan. We're going to use the AeroDump NG utility to perform the scan. If I do AeroDump -NG and do --help, we will pull up the help menu, and there are a lot of different options available to us. We could do a very long video just on this one utility, and we're going to keep it very simple. It gives us the syntax over here next to usage, and it says to run AeroDump followed by any options, and then give it the name of the interface or interfaces if you're using more than one. So let's go ahead and just run AeroDump with no options and just give it the name of the interface. And you can see that it starts performing a scan. If you look in the upper left portion of the screen, you can see that the channel is changing, and that is because it is doing what's called channel hopping. So it is spending a small period of time on each channel, and it's going through all of the available channels. Now you can see that it's only doing what appears to be 1 through 14 as far as the channels, and that is because by default AeroDump scans only on certain bands. So it is not doing anything other than the 2.4 gigahertz band. Now let me go ahead and Control C, and I'm going to open up the man page for AeroDump. So it says right here in the man page that by default AeroDump hops only on all 2.4 gigahertz channels. So if you want AeroDump to scan more than just the 2.4 gigahertz channels, you're going to have to include the -B option and give it additional bands. So we can indicate the band on which AeroDump should hop. It can be a combination of A, B, and G. Letters B and G use 2.4, and A uses 5 gigahertz. So let's go ahead and do A, B, and G, and we will run the command sudo AeroDump NG followed by -B, and we're going to do A, B, and G, and then we will give it the name of the interface. And now if you look in the upper left portion of the screen, you can see that it is going into the channels related to the 5 gigahertz band of Wi-Fi. So we're still going through 2.4, and then we're going up into the higher ones associated with the 5 gigahertz spectrum. And understandably so, this is going to give you a lot more output. We're only seeing so much of it. I could do a key combination of control and the minus sign, and it will make everything smaller on the screen, harder to see, but it will show all of the things that we're not seeing. All right, so there are some other options that I really like to use when using AeroDump for scans. So let's go ahead and run the help. Let's go ahead and run the --help again. So if we want to dump everything to a file, we could do --write. But one of the options that I like to include is --manufacturer, and that will actually display the manufacturer of the device or the access point if it's able to determine it. Another thing I like to do is --uptime, and that will actually give you the period of time that the device has been up for. So if the access point or access points in question around you were recently shut off, you would be able to glean that information from using -- uptime. You will know, that this device has only been up for 24 hours instead of, say, 6,500 days. Okay, so let's run that command again, sudo arrow dump ng, and we're going to do -- bands, and we're going to do all three of those bands, A, B, and G. And now we're going to do -- manufacturer, as well as -- uptime. And once again, give it the name of the interface. And I made a small mistake. Instead of bands, I think it should just be band without the S. So let me go ahead and copy that. And take that S off. Okay. So I'm going to have to reduce the size of this to get everything to fit on the screen, but what you immediately begin to see is some additional columns that have been added to the output on the screen. Over here on the end, we have this column for the manufacturer. So we're now beginning to see the manufacturer of certain devices, not all of them, but a very, very valuable bit of information that you can add on to that. And also we have another column that is called uptime, and that is going to be right here. Those are just the basics of performing a scan using arrow dump with your Alfa adapter. So let's say that you want to connect back to the internet. We are done using arrow dump. We don't want the device in monitor mode anymore, so let's first go ahead and disable monitor mode and put it back into manager mode. We'll run the command sudo airmon ng stop followed by the name of the interface. Which in this example is going to be WLAN0mon. So now the name has surely been changed again, and this is the new name of the interface. So the main thing to understand is that in order for us to connect back to the internet, we're going to need to turn Network Manager back on. If you remember, we ran airmon ng check kill to kill certain processes. One of those processes that we killed was the process for Network Manager. So there's a couple of different ways that we can resolve this. One of those is just to start Network Manager back up. So if I run sudo service Network Manager status, we see that it is inactive, dead. So let's go ahead and just restart it by running sudo service Network Manager restart. Now, if I rerun the status command, we see that it is now active and running. And I will connect back to my network of choice by running nm CLI radio Wi-Fi on. Alright, so in this section I'm going to show you how you can determine the current channel in use by your adapter and how you can change that channel. I have both of my adapters plugged into my system, so if I run iwconfig, we will pull up the various interfaces on the system, and these are both of those interfaces that we are working with. So to first identify the channel of a particular interface, I will use the iwlist command. If I do a what is on iwlist, It is used to get more detailed wireless information from a wireless interface. And there are a lot of different things that you can do with IWList. We are not even touching the surface. So I'll run IWList. I'm going to use tab auto completion for all of this. So I'll do tab twice, and it pulls up the various wireless interfaces on my system. So we're going to look at this second one. So I'll copy the name of that, back that up a little bit, paste that in, and continue with tab auto completion. So it pulls up all of the various commands that we can run with IWList, and we are going to be running the frequency portion of this command. So I will type in frequency and hit enter. And what we get is a list of all the different channels and available frequencies that this adapter is capable of using. And at the very bottom we get the current frequency, which is 2.4 gigahertz, and the current channel, which is channel 7. So if I want to change that channel, I will use the iwconfig command with sudo privileges. So I'm going to type sudo iwconfig. Once again, I can use tab auto completion. We're going to use this second interface, and I'm going to do tab auto completion again, and we're going to be looking for channel, which is right here. So I'll type in channel, and if I do tab auto completion again, it actually shows us the different channels. So it was on 7, so let's go ahead and try to change it to 9. So I'll type in 09 and hit enter. Now once again, let's do IWList followed by the name of the interface and frequency. And we get that the channel is now 9. So that's how you would determine the current channel and change the channel. Now another way that you can change the channel of your adapter is going to be by using arrow dump and performing a scan. So for this method, to save time, I have already brought the interface down. I killed all the processes that could interfere, and I put one of my devices into monitor mode. So if I run iwconfig, this interface down here is in monitor mode, and the name has been changed to WLAN0mon. So if I run IWList and provide the name of that interface and tab auto completion, we will use frequency. We see that the current channel of the device is channel 9. So what I can do is I can run arrow dump and specify the channel using -C, and we will change the channel from 9 to 6. You can do 06, or you can just do 6. And once again, I'll provide it with the name of the interface and hit enter. It will start performing a scan. I'll let that run for a few seconds and then go ahead and Control-C that. And now if I run IWList, give the name of the interface and frequency, you will see that the channel has been changed to 6. So you now have 2 different ways that you can change the channel of your Alfa adapter. In this section of the video, I'm going to show you how you can take the results of performing a scan and you can save the results in various formats, and then you can later view the results. Let's quickly pull up the help menu for arrow dump ng, and the option that we're going to be adding to save the results is going to be the -W option, or you can use --write, and we do have to provide a prefix to the file name because it's going to save more than one file in more than one format. So let's go ahead and run the command sudo arrow dump We're going to want to get as much information as possible, especially since we know that we're saving it to a file. So we will go ahead and add on the manufacturer option, as well as the uptime option. And we're going to do the long form, so we're going to do write. So this is going to save the results of the scan to numerous files. We need to give the files a prefix, so we will call it scan results. And finally, we need to provide the name of the interface, which is WLAN0MON, and hit enter. And I misspelled a word, so that's not going to work. Let me copy that command. Always helps to know how to spell, as well as to read. And I missed the N, so let me put the N inside of there, and now let's hit enter. Alright, so I'm going to let this scan run for a few seconds. This is just for demonstration purposes, but if I were really doing this, then obviously I'd probably be letting the scan run for a much lengthier period of time. You do have to keep in mind that it is channel hopping, so you are going to miss a lot of packets because of the fact that it's channel hopping. If you were to put it on one channel, you will get more of the packets on that channel, but then you're going to miss all of the activity on all the other channels. So you have to make the decision on which one you want. Alright, so this is ran for enough time. Let's go ahead and hit Control-C. Now I should have a series of files saved. So let me go ahead and do ls-lh, and I will enter the prefix that we gave the arrow dump command, which was scan results. We see that we have something called scan results -01 dot. I'll go ahead and add the asterisk. And what we have here is 5 different files that were saved, each one a different format. So we have our PCAP that we can open up in Wireshark. We have a .csv file that we could open up in Excel or the equivalent using LibreOffice. We have a file that we can open up in Kismet, 2 files that we can open up in Kismet. And finally, we have a log file, which is also in CSV format. So I can actually run the file command on these files, and that will also give me some information about them. And we see once again that the first one is a PCAP. The other ones are, the next 2 are considered to be ASCII text. One of the Kismet files is in XML format, and the log file is in CSV text. So to show you what that would look like opening up the PCAP, let's go ahead and use Wireshark. Because we're opening up a PCAP and not performing a capture, we do not need sudo privileges. So this is what it looks like to look at the PCAP for our packet capture inside of Wireshark. We could spend quite a bit of time dissecting this. For the CSV files, we could just use your text editor of choice, such as Nano. But so what I will actually do is open up the CSV file using LibreOffice. So I'll type in LibreOffice followed by the name of the CSV file. and we will do a text import. And what we have here is a very easy to view and understand LibreOffice Calc spreadsheet of sorts. And in my opinion, this is the best way to view this data. Everything is very easy to read. It's in columns. Yes, very nice. Very nice. And for the two Kismet files, I'm not going to open them up in Kismet because I do not currently have Kismet installed on this machine. But to take a look at the log file, same thing, we could open it up using the Nano text editor. But we probably would get more out of this information by using LibreOffice Calc. So I will once again open this up inside of LibreOffice. And we will import the text. And this is what the log file looks like inside of LibreOffice Calc. Now that we have a CSV file that we obtain from saving the results of our scan, we can use that CSV file with a utility called airgraph-ng that will allow us to visualize this data and see the relationships that exist between clients and access points. Now there are a lot of utilities here that we have not even touched on whatsoever, but perhaps these can be things for future videos. So the utility that we're going to make use of now is this one right here, and it's called airgraph-ng. You can actually pull up the man page for that by typing man airgraph-ng, and we see that it is described as an 802.11 visualization utility. Airgraph-ng graphs the CSV file generated by airdump-ng. The idea is that we are showing the relationships of the clients to the access points. Underneath examples, we get a pretty good idea of what it's looking for as far as the structure or syntax of the command. So I'll do Q for quit. We can also pull up the help options by running airgraph --help. Pretty straightforward. So it generates this client to AP relationship that it calls a CAPR, as well as a common probe graph or CPG. And as its input, it's using the CSV file that we would have acquired from running the AirDump utility. You're going to want to make sure that you have a connection to the internet to use this tool. And we're just going to go down the list of options here, starting with -O for output. So we're going to do a -O. We'll just continue the naming convention that we used previously, which is going to be scan_results. And we're going to save this as a .png file. Next, we'll do a -i for the input file, and this is where we give it the CSV file. And that will be the file ending in .csv from our scan earlier. And finally, we will do a -g for the graph type, and we're going to do the CAPR graph, which is referred to as the client to AP relationship graph. And we will hit enter. Now I should have a file that ends in .png, and I do. It's 607 kilobytes in size. And just for the sake of completeness, I'll run the file command on that file, and it is in fact PNG image data. So let's go ahead and use the open command to open up this image and see what we have. This can be incredibly useful for visualizing these relationships, especially if you're the type of person who leans more towards looking at pictures and graphs. If I were to zoom in on this area that's in the center, I see that we have a green bubble, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bubbles coming off of it to form this relationship. So clearly the green bubble in the center is probably going to be the access point, and these smaller bubbles that are connected to the green bubble are going to be clients that connected to the access point. And we have things such as the first time that the client was seen and the last time that the client was seen, as well as the MAC address of the particular client. All right, and that's it. So that is going to be it for the AirGraph utility. One of the final and most powerful things that I'm going to show you that you can do with your Alfa adapter is going to be to change the TX power. This is the power at which your adapter transmits. Now, I am in the United States, and we have regulations as to the strength at which we can transmit on. So I'm not going to be able to demonstrate for you how to increase it. Instead, I'm going to show you how to decrease it, which essentially is the same way that you would increase it. So once again, I'll run IW config to pull up the names of my various interfaces, and we are going to look at this particular interface right here. First thing that we're going to want to do is to see what the current TX power is for the device. I can get the current TX power of the device by running the command sudo iw dev followed by the name of the interface and info. And we see that the current TX power is 20 dBm. Now the highest that it can go to is going to be 30, but you are not allowed to legally transmit at 30 dBm in the United States. This is one of the things that sets these adapters apart from other adapters. You cannot do this with most adapters on the market. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the TX power. And I do that by running the command sudo iw followed by the name of the interface. And we're going to set the TX power to a fixed amount. It's currently at 20 dBm, which would be 2000. So we're going to lower it to 1000. And I will hit enter. And now let's go ahead and rerun the info command. And we see that the TX power of the adapter has been changed to 10 dBm. If you made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, like the videos, and as always,
stay fresh.
We'll see you in the next one.